Hello everyone and welcome to Pearson College and welcome to this series of lectures which is focusing on developing and designing and implementing and writing up a research project. This series of research project lectures spans across a range of courses and your unit tutors in your individual courses will give you exact requirements of your own assessment. However, these lectures are a generic set of lectures which will help you and guide you through the research project process, including things like research project proposals, literature reviews, research methods, writing up a research project, and other elements of the process which are going to be quite essential for you. The aim of this lecture is to give you some insight into basically starting a research project. So coming up with ideas, coming up with maybe basic aims for your research project, and just thinking through and giving you some kind of advice on basically the pitfalls and the ways to think about what kind of project you want to get out of your research projects. It also is to set expectations of what the whole research project process is about and what's it trying to assess, so you can bear that in mind. And I will start to make you think about the research proposal, which most research project units that you'll be attending will require you to submit a research project proposal. A research project proposal is basically a very short piece, which usually a written piece, which is outlining how and why and what you're going to research. So it can almost be kind of pre-signed off. So what is a research project? Well, there's lots of different stages that you need to pass through. The first major stage is coming up with an idea of what you're going to research. Now, when we're thinking about ideas in terms of what we're going to research, we have to think about kind of things in terms of what kind of problems are out there, what kind of opportunities are out there, and what kind of issues are there that we could research. Remember that we're looking at business related issues, okay? And we'll come to some kind of examples of this later, but the first thing to think about when you're looking at a research project is what should I research? And then trying to work out and define what that is. That's really important. So we'll look at that in this lecture. You've also got, once you've got the problem, and when we talk about the problem, the opportunity, it must be a practical problem. So at Pearson College, we pride ourselves in training and educating people to be, in the future, very senior managers. So research and understanding problems and understanding opportunities and issues within business is really important to any senior manager. But the first thing to do is to work out what that problem is and to try and define it, so you can then go and research it and understand what kind of recommendations you want to put forward. So that's the first thing. The next thing is looking at the existing theories or research or literature in the area. You may have come across something called a literature review. Now, a literature review is where you look at what the discussion is, or the theories, or the research is in your field already. And the reason we do that is because we want to understand that we can't answer our question or we can't solve our problem that we're looking at from the existing research, because if you can, there's no point doing the research. It's just reinventing the wheel. So when you're looking at a research project, it usually is something quite fresh, quite innovative, and that no one's really looked at before, which means no one has any recommendations for it anyway. So you have to do the research. That's one key point. This critical review of existing theory and existing research is called a literature review, and we'll have a dedicated session of that as we go forward in these recordings. We then have to go about collecting data, and we have to have some kind of what we call methodology or a method section in our research projects. This is like a set of instructions. This is how I'm going to research this. I'm going to use interviews, I'm going to do questionnaires. This is how many questionnaires. These are the questions. These are why I'm using questionnaires, and these are the type of people that I'm going to question. So when we talk about research method or the collection of data, in a research project, we have to have quite a detailed set of instructions, but also why we're actually going to do the research in this way, and why is it better or the best way to do it by interview or questions or whatever it is. You've got to justify your research methods that you choose. Once you get the data, you have to analyze it. You have to understand what it means and interpret the data and understand what it means to your problem, your opportunity, or issue that you've already defined right at the beginning of your research project. And of course, once you think you understand what it means, you can then go back to the literature, go back to the theories out there, see where there's difference, but also more importantly, you can look at what's the implications of this research, what's the recommendations you can put forward for your problem, for your opportunity, for your issue, whatever you're researching. So, and of course you can justify all these recommendations based on the data that you've collected and what you think it means. So it's a process where you start off and you go all the way through, and hopefully you're going to answer some kind of questions or provide recommendations from what you started looking at. So it is quite a big and extensive process, and that's why it's very important to keep a track of it all the way through. And you'll need to engage quite rapidly and rigorously at the individual stages, because otherwise the whole process falls apart. The aim of a research project now. Research projects are not just at Pearson, they are common across the higher education sector, the university sector. And one of the things that a university degree must assess is your ability to act as an independent learner. Now, this is a national thing, and it's really important because what a research project is trying to assess is whether, as an individual student or candidate in a degree, you can actually understand there's a problem, an opportunity, or an issue within a business. You can go about understanding the various theories, the various literature in that topic. Then you can construct on your own virtually a method to go and try and answer this research problem, question, or issue, and then of course look at the results and provide recommendations. So it is a very personal project and a very personal journey. These recordings will help you understand what you need to do at each phase, but the topic you choose, how you research it, is totally up to you. It's a very wide unit, a research project. Now, it's designed like that because you have to manage yourself. The tutors won't manage you, lecturers won't manage you. You have to manage yourself, because this unit is making sure that you are, or trying to assess you, that you can work on your own and you can show initiative, you can show managerial skills, because many of the jobs out there, they will look at people's research projects or they'll look at people's dissertations because it's a true gauge of how they can manage themselves and how they can actually conduct a major project. And it's a true gauge of a successful manager. So if you understand that, to start off with, it gets you on a good footing, because you now know that you have to control this whole process from start to finish. And bear in mind, for any research project, there's no right or wrong answer. Many students, when they start doing these kind of things, think, oh, I must get this project, this research topic authorized by my tutor. It's not like that at all. There's millions, thousands, if not billions of research projects all over the world. Cancer research, research into Alzheimer's, research into, business dynamics, research into politics. This research is everywhere. It's happening everywhere. And the way to make sure you have a good research project is that, yes, you have a clearly defined problem or issue or opportunity that you want to research, but also that you justify that problem or opportunity or issue. You must be able to justify and say, this is why this research topic is important, and this is why it's really important, and this is why I'm doing it. If you can't justify it and say, this topic's important based on figures, statistics, or reference to something, usually professional literature, as in The Economist, The Times, The Financial Times, the BBC, those kind of news type literatures, or even trade journals. If you can't reference that and you can't back up why your research project is important, that's where you're going to lose marks and that's where you're going to fall down. The whole research project, I hope that you'll come to understand, is about developing arguments. So there's no right or wrong answer. You can use interviews if you want, you can use questionnaires if you want, but what you must say is that, why am I using interviews? Why is an interview the best research method here rather than any other research method? And that's where you will score points. So it is a wide and very open and very flexible unit a research project, but justification and creating arguments for why, and backing those arguments up with referencing to statistics or some kind of literature or some kind of news article is really important to help you get a good mark. So you must show clear independence. These generic lectures, these recorded lectures, are going to guide you throughout the process. And here I'm just saying, what is this all about? What skills do I need to display? Once you know this, once the expectations are set, you can get rolling. You will need to devise a research project from scratch. Okay, you will need to come up with an idea. You'll need to come up with a way to research it. You'll need to do the research, and then you're going to have to look at the results. So it's completely an independent project, but make sure you are clear and you're justifying everything as you go through. And of course, you're going to be looking at topics that, in some depth. If you're looking at digital marketing or you're looking at consumer buyer behavior, you're going to be looking at these topics in really quite a lot of depth. So, you need to show that depth. You need to show that you understand the theories. You need to show you understand the current discussion and that's happening in email marketing or in consumer buyer behavior online, or whatever your topic may be. You need to show that you understand it very deeply. You've gone away and researched it. You've read about it. You've studied it. You've understood it, and you're reporting back on it. So it's a very much a clear assessment of your individual abilities to manage quite a major project on your own. So let's think about, what kind of project can I do? Okay, well, the first thing to think about is that you need to think about, as I said, this problem, opportunity, or issue. Now, this must be a practical problem, opportunity, or issue. Okay, this must be something that a business or a charity or any organization is having problems with. It doesn't have to be an organization. It could be a group of consumers that are having problems with something. It could be a group of managers that are having a problem. So, the scope and what you actually do is unlimited. You need to just think about what it is, and of course, it's really important that you clearly define what this problem, opportunity, or issue is. If you are a bit lost, a good way to start off is maybe if you've got part-time jobs or you've had internships somewhere or you are working, wherever you're working, wherever you're, have worked, maybe those companies or those organizations have research projects that they need doing. Some research projects are actually, are good because they've actually gone to an employer and said, look, I've got a research project. What do you need help with? And they say, oh, we've got a problem with this, and that's something that will start off as a research project. So, sometimes you can just enter these companies and start asking about these things. So, clearly define what this issue is, and it must be a practical business issue, okay? Whatever that is, it's up to you. You need to define that, but also you need to justify why it's so important. Things to consider when you're choosing your research topic is, can I actually gather the data? Great, you might go and want to research, how the managing directors of a big bank in the UK actually make decisions. Well, great, but do you think you're going to be able to interview managing directors and the board of directors at Barclays Bank or any other big bank? Probably not. So, that's going to be a really difficult project to do. So try and keep it simple. Sometimes some of the best projects are actually, where can I get data? I work at Starbucks. I can do a research project where I'm interviewing employees at Starbucks about maybe selling additional products or different types of coffee at Starbucks and how effective it is. So sometimes a research project could be under your nose, it could be where you work, but you must need to think that don't make it hard for yourself. Don't make it that you actually find it very difficult to gather the data. Great, it's great, it would be a great project to research senior managers in banks or any company, but do they have the time to spend with you? Probably not. So we need to think about access and being able to get that data, because that can hold up projects. The next point to make is that it's got to be really interesting. You're going to be spending a lot of time now. Everyone maybe listening to this recording will be on slightly different research projects depending on what unit you are in with Pearson. you'll have different kind of word limits. So I won't talk about your individual units at the moment, but bearing in mind that there probably are quite high word limits, 10, 8,000, 5, 6,000 words. They're quite high word limits, so that's a lot of work. And so these research projects, whatever you choose, must be really, really interesting, because you've got to do this and you've got to do a lot of work on it, and you've got to show that you can do a lot of work on this, manage yourself quite well, and get under the skin and think about the depth of any topic that you choose. If you hate the topic, you really detest the topic, you're not going to be motivated to do your best, you're not going to manage it properly, you're going to be completely demotivated, and that project's going to get a poor mark because of it, because you're not showing the depth and understanding of the topic that you've chosen to study and research. So think about things that interest you. Is it achievable? Now, what I mean by achievable is don't make it overly big. Think about the time span you've got. Again, everyone listening to this and studying this will have a slightly different time span, whichever module you're doing at Pearson. So think about the time you've got. Think about the actual, the time you've got to do this. So make it achievable, because what you don't want to do is rush things to the last minute. And try to be focused. And again, this goes back to being achievable. Don't make it too big. Don't make it too ambitious. Keep it fairly simple, but do it very well. And that's the best way to look at a research project. Keep the problem, the opportunity, or the issue simple, and then go and research it away. We're not doing PhDs here, so we don't need to make it overly complex, because the students that do that find it very difficult to get it down in paper, and it gets a lower mark than a project that is actually relatively straightforward and simple, but they've done every bit of their research project well. So, bearing that in mind, what I've just said, I want you to pause this recording and start having a go at thinking about and brainstorming the kind of ideas you now have on your research project, and note them down. You can formulate those ideas a little bit more as we go through the recording, because I'll pause again at several points to help you move into different areas that you need to do. So for now, pause the recording, think about some ideas, think about what kind of research projects will interest you and what you could do. Okay, do that now, and then press play again and we'll continue. Right, moving on. Some examples of research projects, and I hopefully now you have some idea of what you're going to be doing. These are some kind of simple examples you may help you with your defining what you want to do as a research project. Now, you could be working for a company or know of a company that you can get access to and talk to and question that might be having declining sales on a product. Now, that's fine. They might not understand why they've got declining sales. So, your research project is quite simple. Product X, it's had a declining sales for so many years. Why is that? The managers at the company are not sure. This is going to be the basis of the research project. Fairly straightforward. Another example here. A company might have negative brand associations. But they're not sure why they've got negative brand associations, or they're not sure why their brand isn't seen as being positive and favourable to certain groups of consumers. For example, if you look at the Skoda brand, good and sells quite well in the very sensible, almost middle class segment of society. But when you get to younger consumers, they're not too keen. They move away. They keep to the Ford and the Vauxhall and the Fiat brands. So why is this? What's the negativity in the younger consumer groups? That would be a research project. You might know of a company where literally employees are leaving all the time. There's huge employee turnover. Well, we want to understand why that is. So again, simple project. We need to understand why these employees are leaving us. Is it wages are poor? Is it the style of management? Is it the culture? What is it? Again, we might have a company where customers are leaving us left, right, and centre. But why is that? Why are they leaving us? Where are they going? What do they see as the big advantages of going to a competitor, and which competitor? So, when we talk about customer churn, customers are leaving all the time, but why? We need to try and stop that, and therefore that's the research project. So, some of these and most of these research projects you might be tackling is just understanding why something is happening, that there's a certain trend going on in a business. Managers or have seen this, or consumers have seen there's something happening, but we need to understand why this is. And many research projects are why questions. What is causing this, or why is this happening? And once we understand why it's happening, we then obviously can make recommendations to how to improve the situation. You could be picking up on opportunities. Now, opportunities, when we talk about opportunities as research projects, we are trying to basically improve something. So we've got some examples here. So I might be working for a company, they've never done any email marketing. So my whole research project is to maybe do a little bit of email marketing, help them set email marketing up and see what effect it has. Was it positive or is it negative, or what problems they could occurred when they're actually doing this. So can email marketing increase sales of a certain product? So we're talking now of maybe helping companies. So these are quite consultancy based projects. I work for a company, I want to try and improve the situation. There's an opportunity, I want to try and improve this, and this is the basis of my research project. I'm going to do a bit of research, I'm going to make recommendations, I'm going to try something out, and then we can make this situation better. Company might not have Twitter, so we start Twitter, we start having a go, and we record what actually happens. We ask managers of how they felt and what happened when they tweeted and what were the problems and stuff like that. So understanding the dynamics of implementing Twitter to a company that hasn't previously got it. So interesting research, and helps that company as well. Can we increase sales? Now, suggestive selling is basically where you're in a restaurant or you're in some kind of fast food place. McDonald's do this all the time. So you go and order a meal. They'll say, would you like a large meal rather than the medium? That is suggestive selling. They're suggesting that you should move up to a different meal, or a higher price meal. And of course, that's increasing their sales and their profits. An opportunity in a business could be, can I actually increase sales through suggestive selling? This company doesn't do suggestive selling, but can I increase the sales? And of course, you design a little experiment where you get people to actually start suggestive selling things, record the sales, see what the impact is. That would be a research project that helps a business with an opportunity. Can I understand buyer behavior more? Because if I understand how consumers behave and how they think more, there's obviously lots of opportunities to capitalize on, and that would form the basis of your recommendations. So there's a lot of projects out there, and again, like I say, none of them are going to be wrong. None of them are wrong at all. But the best way for a right answer is that you justify why this research project is important. Why is it important to consumers? Why is it important to a company? Why is it important to the industry? Or maybe why is it important to society? There's multiple ways you can argue why research is important. The important thing is you clearly define what your research is, and your research problem, opportunity, or issue, and then you justify. And that justification, you should reference things all the time. So, for example, a lot of my research at PhD level was into small businesses. Now, the justification for my research into small businesses was that actually, when I looked into the statistics about small businesses in the UK, I found out that over 50% of the whole UK's turnover, the GDP, was from small businesses, not big businesses. Now, when I looked at the literature, when I looked at the academic discussion and looked at all the theories in my area, I found that actually they were all researching IBM, Starbucks, Microsoft, huge multinational corporations, but actually no one had been researching into small businesses. So that was a great research project. I was able to justify that this was a research project I should be doing, or should be done, within small businesses, because I gave them the facts that there's more small businesses in the economy than big businesses, and most of the literature and theories focus on big businesses, so it's natural to go and do a project. So it's creating an argument. Some kind of other examples you could look at, sometimes this is about maybe a question that you have or a company has. So John Lewis, the click and collect service where people order things online and they go and pick it up at the store. What impact does that have on the operations of John Lewis? How complicated has it been to implement? Have they had problems, or has it been easy? And how do consumers think about it? Do they see it as a great service, and why do they see it as a great service? So again, great great research project, talks to managers, talks to consumers at June Lewis, understands what click and collect is doing and the benefits of it. Fine. Next one, we've got a company that's doing a lot of direct mail. Could be a catalog company. They want to try and increase the amount of sales through their catalogs, or the amount of people that are phoning up to make orders from these catalogs that they're sending out. How can I do that? Can I change the shape of the catalog? Can I change the envelope to make it more people open it? And again, the way to research that would be to record the sales before and then after you make a change. And whatever change you make, you have to justify what that change is, and that could all come from what you read about in terms of direct mail and kind of marketing, and how to get better responses. So again, you've got to get under the skin of these topics that you choose. You must have really deep understanding. Next one here, what perceptions do Skoda customers have of the Skoda brand? What do people who buy Skodas think of Skoda? An understanding type question, understanding what the people are saying about Skoda and what it's about. Again, that can help Skoda understand whether they've got positive or negative things they need to deal with, and what recommendations would you make. Alfa Romeo, car company UK, Italian car company, has had sales for, we're talking 50-60% decrease in sales. Why is that? What do consumers think about Alfa Romeo, and why aren't they buying them? Or is it problems behind the scenes? Maybe you need to interview managers to say, what's happening at Alfa Romeo? Why have we got this decline? What's happening behind the scenes here? So understanding what's going on is really quite prevalent in business research. But sometimes you can also act as a consultant. Say you want to try and increase sales or increase suggested selling, or whatever it may be, and then try and do a little experiment to help you do that and see what the results are. And this falls into this kind of different ways of looking at research. You've got first understanding, which many people tend to do at business level because it's much more straightforward. So understanding what's going on, and of course making recommendations once you've researched and understood what's going on. And the other one is the kind of consultancy one, where you're actually going to go in and test and do some testing. You're going to try and increase sales. You're going to do it by this, that, and the other. You're going to do some testing. Now, the testing one is much more rigorous and takes a lot more time. So, and is a lot more statistical. So it's a lot more. You need to play with the figures a bit more. So. And this goes back to, again, thinking about your research project, what you're going to choose. Because if you don't like figures and you don't want to be trying to work out, whether a test is statistically significant, then maybe steer away from the testing. If you are more confident with understanding people's views, emotions, or just understanding what's going on in a more of a qualitative sense rather than numbers and figures, then the understanding type route is more for you in terms of your research project. When we're trying to understand things, what we're trying to do is conceptualize what's going on. And okay, we've got some more examples here. What form does buyer behaviour take online for grocery customers at Asda? This could be someone who's working at Asda, is working quite closely with their maybe online team. They want to understand what's going through the minds of the Asda customers as they're placing orders online. What are the benefits of the Asda online system? What are the negatives? And of course, you can bring recommendations from that. Another question: why do Asda store customers prefer shopping in store than instead online? So there will be a proportion of customers who shop at Asda that have never actually bought online. Why is that? Why do they do that? Why do they prefer to go to the store? What are they thinking? Can we understand that? Another one here: how do tea drinkers evaluate which brand of tea they buy? Again, research onto consumers. How do you understand? How do consumers actually pick tea? There's lots of different brands of tea. There's lots of different styles of tea. How do consumers work out which brand and which style of tea or they actually want? Understanding consumer buyer behavior there. And of course, with that one, you'd want to look at all the consumer buyer behavior theory inside inside textbooks, and hopefully even better inside journal papers if you're going to do really, really well. The testing one, as I said, is more about experiments. You're trying to actually do something and change something that will increase sales or increase, for example, here we've got an example here about Facebook, how many likes a company gets. How can we increase that? Likes are important on Facebook. The more likes, the better. But how can we increase the number of likes? What can we change? What can we do that helps us increase our likes? And whatever we do change, how much has it increased the likes by? So we have that. The testing one is more about measuring, and when we're measuring, we must measure figures. So we've got to be able to say, we started off with 20,000 likes. We tended to get 100 likes per month on average. We did this change, and now we've got now we're getting 300 likes per month. So we can see there's a clear, what we've done, what we've changed has had a clear impact on the organization. So this is much more of a consultancy type project. There's some different ones here. Email marketing is a good one here. Kind of different send times. What it means by a send time is companies will send an email, a promotion email to you at different times of the day. Which is the best day? Which is the best day of the week? Which is the best time in that day? Is it lunchtime on a Friday? Is it 4 o'clock on the Friday? Which one will get the better click-through rates? Those that maybe haven't done digital marketing, click-through is when you receive an email from a company, say Amazon, you click on it and you go through to their website for more interest. So, we'd have to measure that in a testing type research project. The last one here, will email conversion rates increase when sent from a named individual rather than a generic address? So this project here is about saying, well, actually, we send all our emails out from sales@amazon.co.uk. We tend to get a 10% conversion rate. In other words, 10% of the people that receive that email click through and actually buy something. If we send it from an individual person, say David at amazon.co.uk, will we increase our conversion rates, the number of people that click through and buy things? And again, you can clearly see that you would have to measure some quantitative data, some numbers on each side, and also think about what can we change. So if you like that, great, go for it. Just bear in mind it's much more figures, whereas the understanding one is more understanding people's feelings, thoughts and emotions that's going on. Either one is absolutely fine, and you choose the method, the way of looking at these research projects which you feel more comfortable with. Remember, this is an independent piece, this is your decisions, and you have to abide by decisions, and you have to think about these decisions to make this research project a success. Whatever problem, opportunity or question that you choose, or issue that you choose to do, and again, it's completely up to you, the way to think about it, nothing is ever wrong. Okay, nothing is wrong whatsoever. However, you must be able to justify and argue why your project is important, and you must reference everything, reference as much data or news discussion or trade journal discussion that helps you support why your topic's important. Like I say, with my own research topic, I looked at small businesses. I managed to get from the Small Business Service, which was a UK department at the time, that said small businesses are more important in the UK economy than large businesses. That was one reference. I found another reference from an academic that says small businesses are also really important to understand and research because small businesses turn into big businesses one day, and of course they employ more people, which is great for any economy. So again, another reference. So trying to provide all these kind of bits of evidence to support your research topic is really important. And that's the best way to get the best mark. The tutor will never say a research topic is rubbish or is wrong. That's not how it works. You need to demonstrate to the tutor that actually, to get the best marks, this is why this topic's really important. And some reasons why a topic might be important is because there's no research on it. You look at all the academic research, you look at the research and the discussion within the trade journals. No one's actually saying anything about it, or people are saying actually we don't understand this very much. Great, reference it. That's one of the justifications. Is it important to the industry? If you look at the smartphone industry at the minute, one of the biggest research problems they've got is that battery life. Big problem. Battery lives aren't lasting very long and seem to be getting shorter for smartphones. So what a research project could be understanding what consumers think about that. Are they really annoyed about it, or are they happy to actually stay with a smartphone even though the battery only lasts 4 hours and you have to charge it all the time? Or do they think there's a better way of doing it? What do consumers think about this problem with battery life, and what recommendations therefore could you put forward to the likes of Samsung and Apple and the industry itself? Even though we can't, it's very difficult to extend the life of a battery, what other ways could you get around it? There's various ways of justifying, and you've got to think about that. And a lot of the time with a research project is thinking about, I want to do this, but why am I doing it? Thinking about and actually going through in your own head is actually, why is this valuable? Why am I doing this? And justifying it. And if you do that all the way through your research project, you're going to be fine. So again, we're going to pause for a little bit just to reflect on this, you trying to work out what kind of research project you're going to do. So you've been brainstorming some ideas. Now think about why those ideas that you've got in the next 5 or 10 minutes. And again, please pause the recording, spend some time thinking about this. Try to understand why, or try to think of reasons why your research topic is important, and who is it important to. Remember, it could be important to a lot of different people. Now, I understand you, in the 5-10 minutes that I'm going to let you do this, I understand that you can't go and get the references, but you can do that at a later date. Okay, but what I want you to understand is the process. Okay, I've got a research idea, I've got a research topic, this is what it is, this is what we've done, but now, what are the reasons for doing it? What's my justification? How can I tell the examiners that this is really important? Yeah, and of course, when you've finished here, you can go and research and get those references to back it up. So pause the recording and spend 5 to 10 minutes just thinking about your justifications for why your research project is important. Right, moving on. Once you've got your research topic idea, your practical problem, opportunity or issue that you want to do, and you've gone through doing a little bit of research to try and justify that research topic, the next thing to think about is to try and summarize that whole research topic into one sentence. And that's what we call the research aim. Okay, a research aim is where we've narrowed down and we've worked out the focus of our research project, and we've got it defined nice and clearly and focused into a sentence or two, no more than a kind of 2 sentences. So bear that in mind. So eventually, once you've thought about your topic, you thought about the problem or the opportunity, what you want to do, and you can justify it, and it's quite a strong justification, you can start to put down this research aim. Now here's an example of a research aim. Like I say, a research aim is a simple sentence which outlines the direction of your research. So here's an example here. An investigation into the way in which social media is transforming how customers demand more from businesses. Simple, concise. A lot with research is being actually quite concise. A lot of the projects you'll be looking at could be quite complicated once you get into looking at theories behind them, getting to all the ins and outs of your own topics. One of the abilities that you've got to show in a research topic project is that you can be concise and you can be clear and you can actually have clarity to what you're doing and focus. Here's a few more here, research aims examples. An investigation into the ways in which restaurant sales can be increased at Little Chef through devising and experimenting with suggestive selling techniques. So again, this goes back to a testing type research project rather than an understanding type research project. Another aim here, to comprehend and model the behaviour of consumers who purchase Dacia cars online via dacia.co.uk, sometimes pronounced Dacia. Dacia is a brand new car company to the UK. They're said to be one of the cheapest car companies selling cars in the UK, brand new cars. To do that, they sell online. You can order your car online. that's fairly new. That's not really been done before. Okay, so what's the behaviour that consumers are starting to show and demonstrate? Because this is fairly new, a fairly new service, the literature, the theories out there probably doesn't really exist. However, you can go and research and look at general buyer behavior theory, but what's happening here? Is it similar to existing theory, or is there something completely new going on? So that would be an interesting topic, and it's a very contemporary topic, and it's useful to Dacia cars. It's useful to other car manufacturers. So that has a quite a good argument to say, well, that is a good project to do at. So now, again, pause for a moment, pause the recording, 5 to 10 minutes, try and put together a research aim. Okay, you're going to have to put one together at some point, but I'm not going to hold you to this. No one's going to hold you to this. This is a practice run. Try and put your research topic into a sentence or two and no more, and that will be a draft version of your research aim. So again, 5 to 10 minutes, pause the recording, and then we'll move on. Right. Once you've got your research aim, you've got your research topic, and you've justified that research topic, there's another section, another major section to look at. Now remember, I talked about at the beginning of this lecture that actually once you've got a research topic in mind, you then need to get under the skin of that topic. So if you're looking at a project that talks about suggestive selling, or you're looking at a project that talks about branding, or you're looking at a project that talks about accountancy and profit and loss accounts, then you need to then go and read some more about all the theories and the current research in that topic area. Okay, that's really important, because one of the ways to get good marks in a research project is to show that you're almost an expert in your topic. There's no way you can provide recommendations to a company without actually having some decent knowledge of that topic or that issue or that problem. Okay, and the other reason why we look at this literature, the academic literature, is because the answers to our research problem, the answers to our research opportunity could be in the literature. If it is, there's no point doing the research project, because it's just reinventing the wheel. So the kind of what we call the literature review, this is where we actually look at the books, we look at the journal papers, we're searching for other academics and other researchers that are researching similar projects. They might not be researching exactly the same project, but there'll be lots of research out there generally that is connected to your project. So if you're talking about branding at Skoda, there might not be any research about branding at Skoda out there. However, there'll be lots of research about branding and lots of theories about branding. They're the kind of things that are connected to your research topic. So that's what you need to understand. That's what you need to be able to put into your literature review, and that's what you need to now read. Because to get a good mark here, you need to show that you understand a lot of depth behind the scenes to your very current topic. My advice is to do that now. When you're looking at examiners are looking at this, obviously they're looking at students that have got a lot of reading, they've done a lot of reading and studying in their topic. Textbooks are okay to read, and I'd suggest that you start off reading textbooks about your subject, whether it be branding, whether it be email marketing, whatever it will be. Read the textbook on that, and you'll have to go to the library and get those. They're okay, but for better marks, you start going into the academic journal papers. Now, the academic journal papers can be easily found, and if you just go to Google and you'll notice in Google there's all these other tabs. So there's Google Images, there's Google Web, all on the top. If you go to Others, okay, and you find Google Scholar, you can type in keywords. Okay, so if I'm doing branding, I'll type in branding in car companies, or I'll just type in branding for consumer goods, and it will bring up all the academic journals and all the research papers that are in that field. So you can sift through them and look at the papers you want to read. So and that will help you. So academic journals are especially important if you are at level 6. Okay, if you're at level 6, it's really important. Level 4 and 5 books are great, but try and get into the academic papers, because remember, you need to get better as you go through your years in your degree. just to bear in mind that level 4 is your first year of a degree, level 5 is your second year of your degree, and level 6 is the final year of degree. Many people probably listening to this will be at level 6, but some of you might be at level 5 and some of you might be at level 4. Just bear in mind the ultimate piece of work, and to get a very good grade in the final year of your degree, you should be looking at the academic journals. Start off with the books to get a good understanding, but then graduate to the academic journals, because that is where you get better depth and better insight and better focus to understanding the topics. And that's what you need to do to show that you're almost a semi-expert on this topic. So my recommendation is just go read about. Once you get an idea of what you want to do, you've kind of whittled it down into a research aim, and you're able to justify your research project through referencing to statistics and various other professional bodies and government bodies and maybe even trade journals. The next step is to then look at the academic literature and see what they're saying. And that's quite a big step, but I would advise you to look at that quite a lot. And we'll have a dedicated session on looking at the academic literature in something called a literature review session, so you can go and look at that quite soon. Well, thank you for your time. I hope that's been useful. I do recommend, if you are whatever level you're studying at, you will all have a core book. That might be the Saunders core book, which is research methods for business students. Within that, there's a chapter, or in any good research business research methods book, there's always a chapter on putting together a research project and thinking about what a research project will be. There is also always a chapter on how to put together a research proposal. If you want to get ahead, I suggest you read those two chapters in those textbooks. Thank you, and I hope it's been useful.